So they have a specific pattern. Yes, can anyone tell me what is this pattern called as? Yes.
India file.
India file. Yeah, very good. This is also called as an India file pattern. And if you appreciate very carefully, some of these cells, if you see, they have become round. Not some, all of these actually. And they are dissociated. Can anyone tell me this happened? Why? Why did this happen? The
Peak
cells,
adherence.
yes. So
Loss of
there
equilibrium.
was loss of E. adherence. So under the IHC of lobular breast carcinoma, remember, you will say all things ER/PR positive, but don't forget to say that these tumors have loss of E. cadherin expression. The Nottingham grading, this is taken from the WHO and it is given in a very, very simple manner. So you will be asked, what are the components of the Nottingham grading of the breast carcinoma? So they are tubule and gland formation, nuclear pleomorphism, and mitotic count. So what is the tubule and gland formation? So if majority of them is more than 75% is containing tubules and gland, the score will be 1. If moderate 10 to 75% contain gland, score is 2. Little or less than 10%, the score is 3. So let me show you what is tubule formation. This is again taken directly from the World Health Organization 2020 January book. So if you see over here, the Nottingham grading example. So can you see in this diagram, even in the high grade, even in the high power view, there are well-formed, the breast carcinoma is presenting in the form of well-formed tubules are there, okay? So more than 75% is having, so we give a score 1 with respect to the tubule formation. In the moderate variety, 10 to 75% should comprise. If you see, there are some areas which are well defined and they form like tubules, but there are certain areas which are solid also. So it is between 10 to 75%. In that case, it becomes moderate. And if the tumor contains little or very less areas of tubule formation, if maximally they have cells which are, either scattered or they are in solid sheets, so less than 10% tubule formation, the score is given as score 3. So good evening, students. Welcome back. Today we are going to read about a very important topic. Today we are going to complete the topic on breast tumors, and we are going to discuss in details about the invasive or infiltrating variety of breast carcinoma. So let us begin today's lecture without delaying. Okay. So first of all, we are going to discuss about the WHO classification of breast tumors. So as you can appreciate, WHO has basically divided the breast tumors under different categories. Like we are having certain epithelial tumors, then we are having certain fibroepithelial tumor, and we are having the WHO tumors of the nipple, and WHO classification of mesenchymal tumors of the breast. Along with that, we are having classification of hematolymphoid tumors of the breast. Okay, so this is how the World Health Organization has divided the breast tumors. So out of all these groups of tumors, the one which is most important is the epithelial tumors of the breast. And among them, there are many different headings, but among them, the most important one is the invasive breast carcinoma. And among that, the most common variety is your infiltrating ductal carcinoma, NOS. Okay. Then we are having other varieties of breast carcinoma like oncocytic, lipid-laden, glycogen-rich, sebaceous, lobular, tubular, cribriform, mucinous, invasive micropapillary, apocrine, and metaplastic variety. Okay. Then we are having certain breast tumors that we have already discussed, the benign epithelial proliferation and precursors, the UDH, columnar cell lesion, and the ADH. Among the adenosis, we have already discussed about the sclerosing adenosis. Then there are other adenomas like apocrine adenoma, radial scar, and complex sclerosing lesion. Then we are having some kind of adenomas like the tubular adenoma, lactating adenoma, duct adenoma. Then we have certain epithelial myoepithelial tumors, which resembles the tumors of the salivary gland like the pleomorphic adenoma, epithelial myoepithelial carcinoma. Then there is a very important heading, that is the papillary neoplasms of the breast. That includes intraductal papilloma, ductal carcinoma in situ papillary variety, encapsulated papillary carcinoma, and then one with invasion, solid papillary carcinoma. Then we have the non-invasive lobular neoplasia, that is the atypical lobular hyperplasia, ALH, LCIS. Okay, they come under this particular category. Among the DCIS category, we have already discussed in the previous lecture about DCIS, where we are having the DCIS low grade, intermediate grade, and high nuclear grade. Okay. Then we have certain neuroendocrine tumors of the breast as well. But this is the one which is the most important, that is the invasive breast carcinoma, and this is the one which we are going to discuss in details in today's lecture. Now, among the fibroepithelial tumor, we have both the fibrous component as well as the epithelial proliferation is there. So among them, the most important one is your fibroadenoma, phylloids tumor. Okay, and phylloids can again be benign, borderline, and malignant. Along with that, we have hematomas as well, grouped under this category of tumor. In tumors of the nipple, yes, we have discussed in detail, there can be an adenoma, there can be syringoma, and very importantly, the Paget's disease of the breast, which was discussed in the previous lecture. And just like any other tumor, in any other part of our body, there's a classification of the mesenchymal tumors of the breast. So breast also has a connective tissue, and tumors can also arise. For example, certain vascular tumors, fibroblastic and myofibroblastic tumors, peripheral nerve sheath tumors like neurofibromas, schwannomas, granular cell tumor, smooth muscle tumors like leiomyoma, leiomyosarcoma, adipocytic tumors, all of them, they can arise from the breast mesenchymal tissue as well. So this is the basic classification, WHO classification of the breast tumors. And lastly, any kind of lymphoproliferative disorders or tumors can also arise from the tumors of the breast. Okay. Now, among the tumors of the male breast, we have gynecomastia, we have intraductal carcinoma, non-infiltrating NOS, and infiltrating ductal carcinoma of the male breast. Okay. So let us begin with today's lecture. Very importantly, we have to understand one very important factor, that the breast carcinoma that we see, they can present in a variety of ways. That means that the breast carcinoma is quite heterogeneous in nature. Okay, so they have a wide variety of morphological appearance, both gross and microscopic. Okay, and they have many special types. For example, there's a lobular carcinoma of the breast, tubular variety, mucinous variety. Okay, then there is a metaplastic variety. So there are multiple varieties. Apocrine breast carcinoma is this. So there are multiple special types that we are also going to discuss in today's lecture. But but one very important fact that we have to understand, that the most important category of breast carcinoma is your invasive breast carcinoma, that is IDC, infiltrating ductal carcinoma, NOS. Why we say no special type means which those infiltrating breast carcinoma which cannot be placed in any of the special varieties. Okay, they are placed under the IDC NOS variety, and this by default is the most common type that we see. Now, if mammography is not there, then a breast tumor has to grow approximately 2 to 3 centimeter in size so as to be detected. Most commonly, the most common presentation of a breast carcinoma, as you have also done the grossing, they present as a very hard, irregular, dense, radiodense mass with a lot of hard desmoplastic stromal reaction. Yes, so this is the most common presentation. So when such a tumor is cut, okay, they are going to produce a characteristic grating sound. Okay, and you might also see certain chalky white desmoplastic stroma can also be seen with areas of calcification. Okay, so let me just show you. This is the radiographic presentation of the most common variety of invasive carcinoma of no special type. If you see over here, there's a haphazard pattern of stromal invasion. You can see there's the tumor has invaded the stroma, and there is an irregular, outline that we can appreciate over here. Okay, so this is the same image, the same tumor, if you can see. So irregular, white, hard, irregular mass, as we can appreciate over here. There are certain areas which are quite whitish and they're chalky and gritty areas. Okay, so there's a lot of desmoplastic reaction over here. Okay, and under the microscope, the same tumor that we have seen has shown extensive areas of desmoplastic reaction. These are the area of desmoplasia that we appreciate over here. Okay, and this is the area where we can see the infiltrating breast carcinoma or duct carcinoma. Okay, so this is what we appreciate in the most usual situation. But as I told you, breast carcinomas, they are heterogeneous in nature. So if they are heterogeneous in nature, then sometimes they can be deceptively well circumscribed also. Okay, and there might be very less amount of stromal reaction. And in such situation, we might mistake it as a benign tumor. So let us see this diagram. Can you appreciate? This is another radiological picture. And over here, if you appreciate over here in the radiological picture, what do we see? We see a very well circumscribed mass over here. So you might not, think that this is any kind of a cancer. But let us see what happens in the Gross section. In the gross section also, if you look at this tumor, it is not that much irregular. Okay, so we can appreciate that a tumor mass is there over here. Okay, and this tumor mass that we can see in this diagram looks quite pretty well circumscribed. But under the microscope, when we had appreciated, so we saw that there was a lot of malignant cells over here. So we can see malignancy over here, that this came out to be positive for IDC. But is there any kind of desmoplastic reaction? No, there was very less. Okay, there was less desmoplasia, although there was, but it was less compared to the previous diagram. So there was less desmoplasia over here. So usually such tumors, they are growing as a pushing margin. So for example, if this is the breast, if this is the tumor, they try to grow in an expansile manner. So they grow, increase in size like this, and they grow in an expansile manner instead of growing in an infiltrative manner. This is the infiltrative manner of growth. Okay, so this is not seen over here. Okay, this is not seen over here. Okay, and there is a third kind of presentation wherein you don't find any stromal response. There is no stromal response at all. And when you look over here, you might think that, there is just little bit of, there is no such architectural distortion that we can appreciate in this diagram. And when we go for the gross, when we see for the grossing, we cannot see any mass. We cannot appreciate any mass. So we think, where is the tumor? So sometimes you will see that we come across such cases. In such cases, you will see that the tumor masses, they are hidden in between the fat masses. The tumor mass is hidden in between the fatty tumor mass. Okay, so the tumor cells are found scattered within the normal appearing fibroadipose tissue. So I have just mentioned over here that the breast carcinoma can present in many ways. In some cases, there will be no desmoplastic reaction. In some cases, it might mimic as a benign tumor with a well circumscribed mass and less desmoplastic stroma. And in the most common variety, as you can see, they can present with a desmoplasia with IDC cells, and which is the most common type of breast carcinoma that we encounter in day-to-day life. Okay, so let us go to the next section now. Okay. So just remember one thing, that in case of a breast carcinoma patient, when we examine, even during the FNAC that we do, so large carcinomas, they can invade the pectoralis muscle. Okay, and they might become fixed to the chest wall, and they might invade the dermis. Okay, and in that case, they might also invade the dermal lymphatics, and they might cause a retraction that is called as dimpling of the skin. So retraction is a very important clinical sign of a presence of a breast tumor. Okay, and very importantly, very rarely it might be that a patient is not presenting with a breast mass. Instead, they are presenting with metastasis in the axillary node. So that is very rare. Okay, and just remember one thing, just remember one important thing over here, that invasive breast carcinoma, okay, when we are going to read about the invasive breast carcinoma, there are certain very important basic concepts that we have to keep in our mind. Very important basic concepts are there. Okay, because whenever you are getting a slide or even a histopathology image, if you will get, whenever you get a slide or even a histopathological or you get a cytology slide from a breast, okay, in your exam, all these questions will be asked, and if you cannot answer these questions, at least you are not going to pass your exams. So please, I'm repeating once again, okay, there are certain things, there are certain exam questions that you are basically asked so that you can score or so that you can pass. Okay, so these are those questions. In case of invasive breast carcinoma, or even it might not be a breast slide, they will ask you that what is Nottingham grading, because as we know, in our country, in India, now, more than cervical carcinoma, if you remember, now the breast carcinoma has become the most common carcinoma diagnosed in women. And if you see from the amount of mastectomies that are performed, and you perform so much grossing, so this is one of the most common specimens that you come across. So you have to know each and everything in and out about it. And if you can't answer these questions, it will become difficult to pass. So the first thing that we have to understand, whenever we are grading a breast carcinoma, there is a particular grading. And what is the name of the grading? You will be asked. The name of the grading is the Nottingham grading. So what is the Nottingham grading? This is taken from the WHO, and it is given in a very, very simple manner. So you will be asked, what are the components of the Nottingham grading of the breast carcinoma? So they are tubule and gland formation, nuclear pleomorphism, and mitotic count. So what is the tubule and gland formation? So if majority of them is more than 75% is containing tubules and gland, the score will be 1. If moderate 10 to 75% contain gland, score is 2. Little or less than 10%, the score is 3. So let me show you what is tubule formation. This is again taken directly from the World Health Organization 2020 January book. So if you see over here, the Nottingham grading example. So can you see in this diagram, even in the high grade, even in the high power view, there are well-formed, the breast carcinoma is presenting in the form of well-formed tubules are there, okay? So more than 75% is having, so we give a score 1 with respect to the tubule formation. In the moderate variety, 10 to 75% should comprise. If you see, there are some areas which are well defined and they form like tubules, but there are certain areas which are solid also. So it is between 10 to 75%. In that case, it becomes moderate. And if the tumor contains little or very less areas of tubule formation, if maximally they have cells which are, either scattered or they are in solid sheets, so less than 10% tubule formation, the score is given as score 3. So I hope you know how the tubule formation scoring is there, and I hope you remember this. So accordingly, the second important parameter over here is your nuclear pleomorphism. So among the nuclear pleomorphism, if it is mild pleomorphism is there, score 1, moderate and marked pleomorphism will be score 3. And lastly, you are having the mitotic count. Okay, depending on the microscopic field area, you give score 1 to 3. Now, if you go through the latest WHO in the initial section, they have given according to the areas. You don't have to remember that, but at least you should be able to say that the name of the grading system is Nottingham grading. What are the components of the Nottingham? At least say there's a tubule and gland formation, nuclear pleomorphism, mitotic count. Okay. And after that, when you do the addition, like over here, you got score 2. Over here, you got score 1. Okay. Or over here, you got score 2 again. So total is score is 5. In that case, the grade will be grade 1. So if the total score is 3 to 5, it points towards grade 1. If the total score is 6 or 7, it is grade 2, and 8 or 9 is grade 3. So you will be asked what is the grading and how you grade. Okay, so I hope this is very simple and very clear to everyone how the grading is done. Now, this is the example of nuclear pleomorphism. So if it is completely normal, looking like a normal tissue with a very good feature, okay, looking like a normal breast, so small regular uniform nucleus as seen over here is given a score 1. We give a lesser score. If they are moderate increase in size and there is a variability, then we give a score number 2, as you can see over here. And for example, if there's a marked variation on the nuclear size and shape, we give the score number 3. Okay, so this is how you have to do the grading of the nuclear pleomorphism. Okay, so this is all about your Nottingham index of breast carcinoma. So is this very clear to everyone? Okay, histological grading of the breast cancer, no doubts. Okay, then we come to a very important part, that is the immunohistochemistry of breast carcinoma. Now, why is this immunohistochemistry so important? Because under this immunohistochemistry, we do the ER, PR, HER2/neu grading, and this is very, very commonly done. Because if a tumor is ER positive, it stands out to be luminal, it has a separate treatment. They will be given certain anti-estrogens like tamoxifen and all these drugs. If it is HER2 positive, there is a separate group of drug that we are going to give. Yes or no? What is the name? Trastuzumab. And if it is triple negative breast carcinoma that we had read, in that case, there are certain chemotherapeutic agents which are available that we are going to use. So this becomes very, very important over here. That is the immunohistochemistry. So you should know each and everything about immunohistochemistry of breast carcinoma. More so, the latest WHO has given clear-cut guidelines of how to do the reporting. Okay. So here, first of all, this is the hormone reporting status of ER and PR. So what can you appreciate over here? How is the kind of staining that we are looking at? So we want nuclear staining. So nuclear staining is taken as positive. Now remember, WHO, the latest criteria is that at least 1% of the cells should stain. More than equal to 1% cells, if they are staining, then the interpretation is given as positive. Okay, you should also include the percentage of cells which are showing nuclear positivity and what is the intensity of the cell. Okay, remember this. If, for example, the percentage of cells which are showing the positivity for ER/PR is between 1 to 10%, then we report it as low positive. So you should remember what is positive, what is low positive. This is how you have a positive staining. If you can appreciate the nuclear staining, this is a weak stain, example of a weak stain. But at least over here, more than 1% cells, they show positive staining. And over here, it is completely negative. Less than 1% cells are staining. So a positive interpretation is given as more than equal to 1% in the WHO latest guidelines. Okay. So if you see there, but still in our country, I don't know in, outside India, what is the scenario, but in India, most commonly, we are following what is called as an all-red scoring. So what is the scoring? Let us see. In this, according to the percentage of positive cells, this is all-red score is for ERPR. Remember, these questions will be asked to 100% students who are sitting for the exam. Okay, because this is the day-to-day scoring that you are going to see, that whenever they leave a report, and if IC is being done in the institute, then they have to leave this report. Okay, so it depends. So the scoring is done according to the percentage of positive cells. So you can see as the percentage of cells are increasing, the proportion of scoring is also increasing. And also depending on whether the intensity of staining is weak, intermediate, or strong, we have a staining, we have a scoring over here. So what we do, we combine both the scoring. So for example over here, if the score 0, 1, 2, they are considered negative. Okay, the score 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, this is considered to be a positive. That means, what is the importance of this stain? What do you understand? What do you think is the importance of this stain? The importance of this stain is, if a person comes out to be positive with this stain, then they are candidates for receiving treatment, okay, with anti-estrogen drugs. Okay, so just remember, this is the all-red score. This is the most commonly one which is followed in the Indian setup. Okay, just remember, and this is how we do. 0, 1, 2 score is negative, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, how do we come at this score? So for example, around 20% cells, they show positivity. In that case, what is the proportion score? It will come under here. The score will be 3 plus, if the intensity is intermediate, then it will be 3 plus 2. Then the total score is going to be 5. Okay, this is how we are doing the all-red scoring. But according to the latest edition of the WHO, okay, more than equal to 1% cells, irrespective of the what should I say, irrespective of the strength of the stain, whether it is be mild staining or irrespective of the intensity, if more than equal to 1% cell stains positive, it is taken as a positive, and that means the patient should get treatment. That means the WHO wants that all patients, irrespective of anything, if even slight ERPR positivity is, they should get treatment for anti-estrogens. Okay, this is the criteria that we see for ER as well as for PR. It has given they have given positive and negative. So more than equal to 1% of the invasive cancer has nuclear staining of any intensity. Is very important, of any intensity. Okay, be it any intensity according to the latest WHO, and it is also included in the ASCO cap. Okay, similar goes for your PR also. More than equal to 1% of invasive cancer has a nuclear staining of any intensity. So it can be of any intensity. Okay, previously we were going for this all-red scoring, but according to the latest guidelines, any intensity just more than equal to 1% cells are positive, showing which kind of positivity? Nuclear positivity. For ERPR taken as positive. I hope it is clear to everyone. Okay, now we go to the second type of scoring, that is the HER2 scoring. Let us see HER2. First, try to understand how are we giving the HER2 scoring. It is very, very important. What is the score? Okay, so what commonly you are asked in your exam is the immunohistochemistry, is the IHC protocol. So what is positive? What is equivocal? What is negative? So first of all, we write in the IHC report that a person is HER2 plus. Okay, or we say HER2 positive. Okay, so HER2 positive, when we write, we have to write, okay, what is HER2 positive, what is HER2 negative, what is the HER2 scoring. Instead of that, we just write the score is 1, or the score is 2 plus, or the score is 3 plus. So remember, this HER2 1 plus is taken as negative scoring, and HER2 3 plus is taken as a positive scoring, and HER2 2 plus means it is equivocal, means it is not negative, it is not positive. So you have to go for FISH. You have to go for ISH, or in situ hybridization studies you have to carry out to understand, or to for the results. Okay, this is what is meaning by 2 plus scoring. So what is number one? What is your negative scoring? So score 0 and 1 plus is negative. So what is score 0? When no staining is observed completely in, if there is no staining, if you can see over here, no staining, no stain at all is present over here, or incomplete membrane staining is present in less than 10% of the cells, in less than 10% of the tumor cells, then it is score number 0. Score 1 is when there is an incomplete membrane staining that is faintly seen in more than 10%. So incomplete membrane staining in more than 10% cells, it becomes score 1. Remember, score 0 and score 1, it is taken as negative. Okay, score 0 and 1 is taken as negative. Okay, now the score 2 plus. What is score 2 plus? You have a weak to moderate, but there is a complete membrane staining is observed in more than 10%. Okay, so it is weak to moderate, complete. So the term is it should be complete, and it should be weak or moderate staining. Okay, and it should be present in more than 10% of the cells. That is, complete membrane staining is present, but the intensity is weak or moderate. Complete but weak or moderate. Okay, over here it was incomplete, and over here is also the score 3 is complete, but it should be intense staining in more than 10% cells. Okay, this is your score number 3, circumferential membrane staining that is complete. Along with that, it should be intense and present in more than 10% of the tumor cells. Okay, that is called as score 3. So if the score comes out to be 3, it is taken as positive. The patient is given the patient is given trastuzumab therapy. But for example, if the score has come out to be 2, that means you cannot give a clear cut. You have to advise for ISH or FISH, that is fluorescent in situ hybridization, or any other in situ hybridization test. Okay, it is taken as equivocal. So this is how you will interpret HER2. Is it clear to everyone? Okay, is it clear to everyone about the HER2 scoring? Yes. So as I have already told you the algorithm, yes, if there is no membranous staining, 0% cells, negative, that is 0. If the membranous staining is present, we have to see the complete. If it is incomplete, even if it is in more than 10% cells, it is 1 plus, taken as negative. If it is complete staining but weak or moderate intensity, then it is equivocal. You have to confirm with FISH or ISH study, and if it is complete, along with that, it should be intense staining is there, then only we take it as 3 positive, 3 plus. Okay, this is how we are going to do the ER, PR, HER2, and the Nottingham index we have already discussed. Now we are going to discuss about the special histological types of invasive carcinoma. So let us first understand some important criteria and rules. Now, very important, as we told that some special histological types of carcinoma, they fall under the luminal category. Luminal categories are those category which are ER positive breast carcinoma. So what are these categories, special types which are luminal and which have the special histological type? Lobular carcinoma, mucinous variety, tubular variety, and papillary carcinoma of the breast. So they come under this category. So we have to understand certain very basic concepts that you will be asked in your viva, that majority of the breast carcinomas, they are firm or hard in consistency, that we already know. And we already know that the most common variety is ductal carcinoma of the breast, NST, no special type. Okay. So what is the meaning of ductal variety? So to understand the ductal variety, we have to understand the special variety. So for any tumor to become special, for example, there is a tubular variety of breast carcinoma. It should show more than 90% tubular cells, or cribriform variety should show more than 90% cribriform variety. Okay, so very important is this. Now, for example, if a non-specialized, for example, if a tubular variety is present in more than 50% only, but not reaching up to 90%, in that case, we will use the term IDC-NOS. IDC-NOS. So for a tumor to be typed as a ductal NST variety, it must show the non-specialized pattern in over 50% of its mass. So more than 50% of the tumor should be non-specialized, should not show a tubular variety, a lobular variety, or a mucinous variety. So that amount should be less than 50%. Okay, so if a tumor is showing a non-specialized pattern in over 50% of its mass, then we call it as a ductal NST. But for example, if the ductal NST, the non-specialized tumor, if the component is falling between 10 and 49%. So for example, For example, if around 40% of the tumor is no special type, it is NST, plus for example another 40% they show tubular variety, then in that case we call it as a mixed tumor. We call it as a mixed tumor. Okay, mixed tumor we call it. Okay, this is very important. Okay, let us appreciate other things. Okay, now few other important points that I would like to make over here is that, okay, just remember that in case we want to say that a particular carcinoma is a medullary, which we do not say now, in the latest edition they have removed the term medullary. If the carcinoma is having medullary features, we just label it as invasive duct carcinoma NOS. We don't write the carcinoma is having medullary features separately, because there is no provision for that. Okay, remember. But previously, any tumor which was showing the medullary carcinoma feature, they should show at least 75% of the tumor area to be medullary. Okay, now in case the tumor is to be said as mucinous, it should show at least 90% area should be mucinous. Similarly for tubular, similarly for your cribriform variety also, you should show that 90% of the tumor is having this variety. Okay, so this is very, very important point. Achha, now one important thing that I would also like to say is that apart from these basic features, just let me tell you, there are other carcinomas like oncocytic and apocrine carcinomas. Okay, so for again a breast carcinoma to be oncocytic, to be labeled as this, should show 70% area should to be oncocytic. For apocrine, they should show 90% area is apocrine cells. Okay, now one other important feature is how do you differentiate between a ductal carcinoma NST, means an infiltrative ductal carcinoma, from a metastatic carcinoma of the breast. How do you, because breast carcinoma is arising from a duct, so it is basically one type of adenocarcinoma. So there might be a metastatic lung adenocarcinoma or poorly differentiated endometrioid variety of carcinoma. So how do you differentiate? So very important that breast carcinomas, they are ER/PR positive, but most importantly they are positive for GCDFP15, that is gross cystic disease fluid protein 15. This is very important. It is this ER/PR and GCDFP is positive in case of a primary breast carcinoma. If it is originating from a lung or thyroid, it will be TTF1 positive. If it is coming from the endometrioid carcinoma, it will be positive for Vimentin. If it is coming from an ovarian epithelial ovarian, then it will be WT1 positive. If it is originating from colorectal carcinoma, it will be CDX2 positive. So this is how you have to rule out metastatic breast tumors. Okay, so this is your invasive carcinoma of no special type. There is no special pattern as such. You can see in between there is a lot of desmoplasia that has developed. You can see the cells. There is a very high amount of mitotic figures, if you can appreciate. Yes, this pattern classically, if I ask you what is the Nottingham grid, will you be able to say there is a lot of mitotic figures? So I will give grid number 3 over here. Tubule formation is not seen. Again, grid 3 I am going to give. And according to the, if I look at the nuclear pleomorphism, more or less they are moderately pleomorphic as, or moderately variable in size and shape they are. So 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2, 8, and 8 stands for high grade. So this we are looking at a grade, a grade 3 breast carcinoma. This is a grade 3 breast carcinoma. Grade 3 breast carcinoma, not according to the Nottingham grading. So the first special type that we are going to discuss is your invasive lobular carcinoma of the breast. Now, very important is that it is the most common special type of breast carcinoma, comprising 5 to 15% of all the cases. And after IDC breast, it is the second most common type overall. Now, it is increasingly common in post-menopausal women. It is increasingly common in post-menopausal women, and they present, invasive lobular carcinoma patients are presenting at an older age, and they have a lower histological grade, and they have positive hormone receptors. So they are ER/PR positive and GCDFP15 positive. So what is very important, that this tumor has a very good prognosis. So it is imperative that you recognize and diagnose this tumor. One bad thing about this is that these tumors are multicentric. Means, for example, if this is one quadrant of the breast that we are looking at, so they might be present in multiple quadrants of the breast. They might also be bilateral. They might also be bilateral. Okay, they are bilateral and multicentric. Remember these points. Okay, this is very important. Macroscopically, if you see again, these tumors, they are indistinguishable. They are very ill-defined tumors, ill-defined areas of induration are there. And one very important fact with regards to lobular carcinoma is that under radiology, they do not produce any kind of abnormal imaging. So you might completely miss lobular carcinoma of the breast under this imaging, under the radio or under mammography. Okay. Histologically, let us see how they look like. As I told you, let me just show you the histological image of this tumor. So they have a specific pattern. Yes. Can anyone tell me what is this pattern called as? Yes.
India file.
India file. Yeah, very good. This is also called as an India file pattern. And if you appreciate very carefully, some of these cells, if you see, they have become round. Not some, all of these actually. And they are dissociated. Can anyone tell me this happened? Why? Why did this happen? The cells. Yes. So there was loss of E-cadherin. So under the IHC of lobular breast carcinoma, remember, you will say all things ER/PR positive, but don't forget to say that these tumors have loss of E-cadherin expression. Loss of E-cadherin expression is very, very important point in case of breast carcinoma. And these tumors, they are dissociated. Okay. Why? Because that cohesiveness is gone. Okay. And they have one pattern that is called as the India file pattern. Okay, so this is the classic presentation that I showed you. So classically, in approximately 40% of the infiltrating cases are the classic variety. As I showed you, they have the cells arranged in single files or linear cords that invade the stroma, and they lack cohesion. So these are moderately sized, small to moderately sized round cells, lacking cohesion, individually dispersed, sometimes in a single line pattern. Sometimes these infiltrating cells might surround a duct, and in that case they produce what is called as a targetoid pattern. So let me just show you this other pattern. So can you appreciate over here, one duct is there that has been surrounded by these cells. So this is called as a classic targetoid pattern. Okay, so the targetoid pattern around normal ductular structure. So they will surround certain ducts, so they can entrap the ducts also. So this is called as a targetoid pattern. So classic and targetoid might coexist together as well. Okay, let me show you this other pattern. Okay, there is also one variant which is called as the trabecular variant, wherein the cells are growing in the form of a trabecule. Okay, so this is not the trabecule variant. I think trabecule variant is not shown. Anyways, this is another variant of lobular carcinoma of the breast. This is called as the alveolar pattern. Why? The cells are growing in nest or alveoli. Okay, but if you look at the basic morphology of the individual cells, they resemble the lobular carcinoma cells. Okay, so this is also one of the presentations of infiltrating lobular carcinoma. So very important, they are rounded clusters of cells with characteristic lobular morphology. Okay, the alveolar pattern is there. Sometimes you might see that these cells are crowded. The Indian file pattern is there, but they are solid type. But the lobular cytology is very well appreciated over here. Okay, and sometimes your lobular carcinoma, usually remember, they are very good tumors with a good prognosis, and usually they show minimal pleomorphism, but sometimes they might show marked nuclear atypia. That is the pleomorphic type of lobular carcinoma of the breast. So this is very easy. If you just go through the images, you will remember the variants. You don't have to read the theory and details. Over here, very important thing is that sometimes you will see that inside the lobular carcinoma cells, you will see certain intracytoplasmic lumina. Now, let me just illustrate my point over here. Can you appreciate certain cells over here? What do they look like? They have certain cytoplasmic lumina. Okay, that means they are containing certain intracytoplasmic mucin is there. Okay, the mucin is present over here. Okay, so they contain mucin, and this, when this type of cell, when they predominant, okay, then we call this kind of tumor as signet ring cell carcinoma. They look like signet ring cells. Okay, so intracytoplasmic lumina, they are seen in most types of breast carcinoma. They are most frequently seen in infiltrating lobular carcinoma, just I showed you right now. And they are filled with mucin, which are washed away. What are these mucins? These are sialomucins, and they stain positive with PAS Alcian blue staining, or they will also come out to be positive with EMA. Okay, sometimes, and they acquire a signet ring configuration, as I showed you. So when these cells are in majority of the tumor, we use the term signet ring cell carcinoma. Okay, I hope I made my point clear. As I told you, IHC wise, majority are ER positive, PR positive. Okay, and very important, HER2 HER2 overexpression, and this they are not reported. Okay, they are not reported much in this variety, but very important is the loss of E-cadherin expression that is seen in this particular carcinoma. And one very important thing is, as I told you, they show minimal desmoplasia. So that means what? They are not going to be seen under the microscope. That means they can be not in the microscope. They cannot be appreciated in the radiology imaging. So there are high chances of missing the lobular carcinoma. And tubule formation is absolutely not seen in case of lobular carcinoma. So these are all the important points. I'm not going to this part because we have already discussed this 2-3 times before about the lobular carcinoma. What is the loss of expression of CDH1? That is the gene which is encoding E-cadherin. So we have already discussed this part, so I'm not going for that. So what is the cause of the characteristic presentation in lobular carcinoma of the breast? Is the loss of CDH1 expression, which is the gene responsible for expression of E-cadherin. So we have already discussed this part. Okay. One important thing is that they have a very distinctive metastatic spread involving the peritoneum, retroperitoneum, along with the leptomeninges. Okay, this is how they present. Okay. And one important thing that I would like to draw a correlation, that what are the other tumors where you have loss of mutation involving the CDH1 gene, that is loss of E-cadherin expression. It is also seen in the gastric carcinomas, When I will teach you, I will show you that. In gastric carcinomas also, you have this loss. And in that case also, they give rise to a carcinoma that is called as a signet ring cell carcinoma of the stomach. And that is also, and the cells are having the similar morphology that we see in case of lobular carcinoma of the breast. So that is, we see a common factor between the lobular carcinoma of the breast and the signet ring cell carcinoma of the stomach. Both of them have the same mutation. Okay. So let us go to the next important type of next special type is invasive tubular carcinoma. So it is imperative to again diagnose this case. Why? Because this is having a very good prognosis. Okay, it is an uncommon histological type which is contributing 1 to 4% of the invasive breast carcinoma. So you cannot differentiate very clearly between tubular from the ductal variety macroscopically, but microscopically there are two main types. Okay, invasive tubular variety can be of pure type, in which it is a star-shaped structure, tumor is there, and over there you have some amount of elastosis and radiating arm, just like very much like your complex scar that we had discussed in that time. And there's a sclerosing type where you have more amount of diffuse, more amount of fibrous tissue deposition is there in the sclerosing variety. So these are the two important types of tubular carcinoma of the breast. Very importantly, it's very simple. This tumor contains very normal looking cells, okay, single layer of epithelial cells enclosing a lumen. There is no myoepithelial cells as such. So let me just show you this diagram so that you understand. It's very mild looking, normal looking. You can see normal tubules throughout. Normal looking tubules you can see throughout the breast, and very importantly they have just a single layer. So what is the importance over here? If they're having just a single layer, means what? There is a loss of myoepithelial cell. That means this is the cancer. Okay, so you have seen how these tubular structures have infiltrated the stroma, and this is classical desmoplastic stroma, as you can appreciate over here. Yes. Okay. Now they have very less nuclear pleomorphism, just like we were discussing about your lobular carcinoma. Just like that, they have a very little nuclear pleomorphism. Very important thing, elastosis has been regarded as the hallmark feature of tubular carcinoma, but it is not present in all cases. So in which variety do we see elastosis? In the pure variety, we will see elastosis. Okay, so there are areas of central fibrosis and elastosis, just like the radial scar, where we will see the tubules which are present. Okay, we'll see the scanty tubular structures which are present. Okay. Now, sclerosing variety has less elastosis and more diffuse and haphazard infiltration of the tubules within the connective tissue and the adipose tissue. So that the distribution is quite diffuse and haphazard in case of sclerosing variety, whereas in case of the pure variety, you have elastosis, you have the central areas, okay, which is containing some tubules, and in the periphery, we have more tubules. So there's a proper arrangement seen in case of the pure type. Okay. Now, as I told you, for a tumor to be labeled as an invasive tubular carcinoma, at least 90% of the lesion should contain tubular variety only. Okay, this is the most important thing. Now, one very important thing is, in only one condition, in only with one other tumor, that is the cribriform variety of breast carcinoma. If, for example, the tumor is containing less than 90% tubules, okay, but the remaining type that is present, if it is the cribriform type, then a tumor can be said as tubular if the pattern is forming 50% of the tumor area. So what do I mean over here? That, for example, if a tumor is containing 60% tubules, it is not 90%, plus remaining 40%, if it is of the cribriform variety, then also we are going to label it as the invasive tubular variety of carcinoma. Now, for example, other situation I gave you. If 60% there is a tubule, plus, for example, 40% we have no special type, okay, then what do you call this tumor? It will be called as mixed variety. Okay, it will be called as mixed variety. If, for example, 60% of the tumor is no special type, plus 40% is only tubular, then it will be called as IDC-NOS, that is NST. Okay, that is NST. As I told you, at least 50%, if more than 50% is no special type, we label it as NST only, no special type. Okay, so for a tumor to be labeled as completely a special type, usually more than 90% is required for tubular carcinoma. The only exception is that if along with the tubular carcinoma you have the cribriform carcinoma, in that case, if more than 50% is the tubular variety, then, and if the remaining variety is cribriform, then we are going to label it as tubular variety of carcinoma. Similarly, I am discussing now only for a tumor to be labeled as cribriform variety, more than 90% should be cribriform. But again, if for example, cribriform is less than 90%, if the cribriform variety is more than 50%, plus the remaining is tubular variety, then also we can label it as the cribriform variety. Okay, I will just discuss it again also when we discuss cribriform variety. Okay. Now, as we see in other kinds of breast carcinoma also, if you see over here, just remember one thing. This tumor is so nice. Tubular variety of carcinoma is so good that if you see any multi-layering of the nucleus, or if you see a high-grade nucleus, or if you see frequent mitotic figures, it is going against the diagnosis of tubular carcinoma. And more than 90% they are luminal variety, they are ER as well as PR positive, and HER2 is negative in these tumors. Okay, just remember this thing. And the important differential diagnosis is the sclerosing adenosis. So how you will differentiate? See, in case of sclerosing adenosis, if you are going to go back and see, you will see that there is a marked compression distortion of the gland structures in case of sclerosing adenosis. And sclerosing adenosis will also show the presence of myoepithelial cells. Okay. Okay. Now we go to, this is again your high power view of the tubules, which are lined by a single layer of cells, absence of myoepithelial layer. And these are very bland looking, nice cells. Okay. Now, invasive cribriform carcinoma, another special type. Cribriform pattern means what? The term cribriform basically means this, that if a tumor is there, cribriform means this, that there will be punched out spaces. Okay, this will show punched out spaces like this. That is the meaning of cribriform. Okay, so very important that this is also called as a sieve-like pattern of growth. Just like your tubular variety, these are very closely related to the tubular carcinoma, and they also have an excellent prognosis over here. Okay, again, just over here you can find, just like the tubular variety, desmoplastic stroma will be there, and these tumors have little pleomorphism, no mitosis, and they have punched out spaces, well-defined punched out spaces are present in this tumor. Now, just like your tubular variety, for the diagnosis, 90% of the tumor should contain the cribriform variety. The only condition where around 50% is acceptable is that if more than 50% is cribriform and the remaining tumor is your tubular variety, then we label it as invasive cribriform carcinoma of the breast, invasive cribriform variety of breast carcinoma. Okay, just remember one thing. If, for example, 60% is your cribriform and rest 40% is your NST variety, then what will be the type? Yes, what do we label it as? This will be mixed. If, for example, 60% is no special type plus 40% is a cribriform variety, then what do we label it as? We label it as
NS.
very good, NST. So anywhere, if the proportion of NST grows more than 50%, if the proportion of NST is growing more than 50%, we call it as NST only. Okay. Yes. Any doubts? Okay. Coming over here, again, the differential diagnosis, I'm not going to discuss in detail. One is adenoid cystic carcinoma, extensive cribriform DCIs can also have this, and carcinoid tumor. So in case of your cribriform carcinoma, you will have lack of myoepithelial cells, which becomes very important. Okay. So this is your cribriform variety. As you can appreciate over here, the cells, yes, they are sieved out, punched out spaces are there. Now, why am I not calling it as an extensive DCIs? Because can you see there is a lot of desmoplastic stroma in between? Yes or no? It is quite similar to the one that we had seen. And some of them, they also contain certain secretions over here as well, can be seen. So this is the classic cribriform variety, very much similar to the tubular variety. Okay. Sieve like punched out spaces. Now comes the invasive mucinous carcinoma. Now remember, why am I teaching you the special types? Because in your exam, the teachers are fond of keeping the special types. These are not as much common as you will think. They are very less common. And that is why when they get that, they use it in your exams. Okay. So for the mucinous variety, let us see what are the features of the mucinous variety. Again, just like the lobular carcinoma of the breast, this is common in the postmenopausal women. Again, it is not very common. Around 1 to 4% of the cases they show this. So characteristically, you will have lakes of mucin. Okay, you will have lakes of mucin. Histologically, there will be small islands and clusters of cells which are basically inside extensive lakes of extracellular mucin. Okay, so what are the stains that we are using in this? There is a mucir carmine, MUC2, MUC6. These they are going to confirm the mucinous nature of the mucin that is present. So can everyone appreciate over here? This is the mucin which we cannot see, the white thing, that is the mucin. And you can see in the lakes, these small islands of tumor cells are lying over here. Yes. So you will see clumps of carcinoma cells lying within large flakes of mucin. Is my voice audible to everyone? Yes. Is my voice audible to everyone? Okay. Yes. So again, these cells, they show very little nuclear pleomorphism. Now remember, when do we label a case as pure mucinous variety? At least 90% should have that. Agar 90%, if it is not there, if it is, for example, if 10 to 50% of the cases are ductile. So for example, again, I will show you, this is very easy to understand. So for example, over here in this case, if 60% is mucinous plus 40% is NST. So what do we label it as? It is a mixed variety. Okay. If it is other way around, 60% NST plus 40% mucinous, we will label it as, very easy, as NST, no special type only, IDC, NOS. Okay. Again, the pure mucinous variety is having a favorable prognosis. And as I told you, they are luminal cancers with ER positivity, PR positivity, and they lack HER2 positivity. Okay. Now this is another very important image. Now we can see the cells are quite uniform. Okay. And they are inside mucinous lakes. Now in today's world, we do not have an entity called invasive medullary carcinoma. So you tell me, where do we place these tumors? Where are these invasive tumors kept? Yes. Can anyone tell me? Where are these invasive tumors kept? In which category do we keep this?
Special types?
No. Under the special type, if you see in the first time only when I was discussing the classification, I told you there is no provision in the latest edition of WHO. There is no provision for invasive medullary carcinoma. So if you find features of medullary carcinoma, you just label it as invasive carcinoma NOS, because the prognosis is not any different when you compare it with invasive carcinoma NOS or IDC NOS. Okay, that is why they have completely got away with the term medullary carcinoma separately, but they are given in Fletcher's, they are given in other books. I'm just telling you. Okay, so first of all, there are certain groups of tumors that I already told you before in the molecular profiling, that is called as a triple negative breast carcinoma, which are ER, PR, HER2 negative. Okay, so there are certain groups of tumors, okay, which show this type. So the most important is the carcinomas with medullary pattern. So what is this medullary pattern of tumor? These are those tumors which show minimal desmoplasia, and they are well circumscribed, and histologically they will show solid sheets of large pleomorphic cells with prominent nucleoli, frequent mitotic figures are there, moderate to marked lymphoplasmacytic infiltration will be seen, and they have a non-infiltrative pushing border. They don't infiltrate, they push. Okay, let me just show you. Okay, can everyone appreciate these cells? These are present, all the nucleus seems to be present together in a syncytium. Can you appreciate what is a syncytium? Do you know what are syncytial cells? Do you have you ever seen complete mole? Yes, hereditary form mole, have you seen? Have you seen the syncytiotrophoblastic cells? So because they are these are resembling as if there are multiple nucleus which are floating together. That is why this is called as a syncytium. And these nucleus, they are large, pleomorphic, vesicular, as you can appreciate. And the most important thing in this tumor is the presence of this lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate. A lot of lymphocytic infiltration is seen in this tumor. Okay, intense lymphoplasmacytoid infiltrate is there, and a syncytial growth pattern is there. So earlier it was thought that medullary carcinoma is a very bad tumor. Okay, it cannot be treated, has a worse prognosis, but today it is seen that such things are no more seen in these tumors. They have a very similar prognosis to IDC NOS. So we do not separately mention this type. So for example, in case of mucinous, in case of tubular, in case of cribriform, in case of lobular, why are we naming it? Because these have a good prognosis. So I can tell the patient that your 5-year prognosis is this. You have a good prognosis, but over here there is no requirement to say specially. Okay. So medullary carcinoma, if you see, they have a basal type, means they are ER/PR HER2 negative. Histologically, I told you they're present in syncytium, large pleomorphic cell, vesicular nucleus, bizarre nucleus, no tubular structure is present, no desmoplasia is present. There is a lymphoplasmacytic infiltrate over here, as we see, and these tumors, they grow. Okay, they don't infiltrate, means they do not grow like this. They don't infiltrate like this. Rather, if they are like this, they start to push like this. They will grow like this. Okay, they have a pushing border. Okay, they don't have a infiltrating border like other tumors. Very important thing with regard to medullary carcinoma is that that they typically lack the ER/PR and HER2. Okay, they're triple negative, and they show very high proliferative and apoptotic activity. And very important thing, that such tumors with medullary-like features, they show BRCA1 gene mutation. So they are associated with BRCA1 mutation. So what is that? Let us see. Carcinoma with medullary pattern. Okay, they are of interest because half of the BRCA1 associated tumors, they are of medullary pattern. So there is some association with BRCA1 mutation. And remember one thing, means this relation is not there in the germ line. Rather, because of some other hypermethylation or silencing of the BRCA1 gene, when there is there, then in that situation, we see that they have medullary pattern. Okay, remember, this subtype has a better prognosis than the poorly differentiated breast carcinoma. And mainly, this is because these have a large amount of infiltrating T lymphocytes, which is suggested to have improved the outcome of this tumor. Okay, is it clear? The association, the histology. Okay, now there are other two histological types which are frequently overexpressing HER2. What are those? One is your apocrine carcinoma, which is associated with HER2 overexpression, and one is your micropapillary carcinoma, wherein you have the micropapillae, but you lack the fibrovascular pores. And apocrine, as you can appreciate, they have cells with abundant eosinophilic cytoplasm. That is the apocrine cells. Okay, there are some other tumors apart from medullary carcinomas which are also triple negative. Let me just tell you. Okay, the profile is resembling that of TNBC. That is your metaplastic carcinoma and your secretory carcinoma of the breast, as well as your medullary carcinoma. These three tumors, they have a triple negative breast carcinoma histological type. Okay, these three. I'm just mentioning this other two also. Clear to everyone? Yes. Let me move ahead now to your inflammatory breast carcinoma. So what is your inflammatory breast carcinoma? See, it is again a special type, and usually it is a clinical diagnosis. It is a stage T4C, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyways, so over here, what happens that there is an extensive involvement of the breast, and in the skin, the lymphovascular spaces are involved completely. Okay, and as a result, the lymphatics cannot drain. So there is an intense breast erythema, redness, swelling, and skin thickening. Okay, and because of the associated edema, okay, the edematous skin, it is tethered to the Cooper's ligament of the breast, and as a result, these ligaments, they retract, giving rise to certain dots, okay, which appears like the dots on an orange. That is the pudy orange appearance. Remember, inflammatory term is misnomer because there is no inflammation as such. It looks like that. Okay, remember that tumor is diffusely infiltrative. They do not form any discrete palpable mass. Just a hard red skin will be seen. And it might be confused with a breast abscess or an infection. Okay, this is a high grade tumor. Now we have completed the special types of the breast carcinoma. We have to discuss about the prognosis of breast carcinoma because an important short note and sometimes long answer question is asked just on the prognosis of breast carcinoma. Okay, so very important, the outcome for a woman with breast carcinoma depends on the biological features. That is, what is the molecular type of the tumor, whether it is a luminal variety, whether it is HER2 variety, whether it is your basal variety, and what is the histological type. If it is a lobular, it is having a good prognosis. If it is a tubular, cribriform mucinous, good prognosis. Okay, and the stage of the disease, whether it is stage 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the stage, we can say. A very important thing is that the prognosis, it varies a lot. Some people have a normal life. Some people have have less than 10% chance of living in the next 5 years. So it varies because breast is a heterogeneous tumor. Now, patients who present with distant metastasis or those who are with inflammatory carcinoma, they have a very poor prognosis. And very important is prognosis is determined by the T staging and the N staging that we are going to discuss later. What is the staging? The first very important factor is the lymph node status. And over here, we see the axillary lymph node status, which is the most important prognostic factor in case of breast carcinoma. Okay. So if distance metastasis is not there, in that case, axillary lymph node metastasis becomes the most important prognostic factor. How do you assess? By a biopsy. Remember, if there is no nodal involvement, if you are free of node involvement, then the 10-year survival is approximately 70% to 80%. If 1 to 3 nodes are positive, the survival goes down to 35 to 40%. And if more than 10 nodes are positive, the survival goes down to 10 to 15%. Now, why you're thinking we are using 1 to 3 and 10 nodes? Okay, because this is how the staging and the grading is also done. So if the number of lymph nodes increases involvement, then the prognosis also becomes worse. Okay. Also very important, the presence of nodal metastasis is correlated with the probability of getting a distant metastasis. Okay, remember. And just remember, removal of the involved lymph node does not lower the risk of future metastasis. Okay. Now you know what is the meaning of sentinel lymph node biopsy. Sentinel lymph node is the first node where a particular metastasis goes or tumor travels. Okay. So in our breast carcinoma, remember, axillary lymph nodes are considered to be the they are considered to be, axillary lymph nodes are basically considered to be the first sentinel lymph node. So we do a biopsy and we check whether any metastasis has occurred. Why it is important? Because if you carry out axillary lymph node dissection in all the tumors, then axillary lymph node dissection has a lot of side effects, including future sarcoma development of the involved hand can be there. Okay. So that is why, to avoid this, we carry out sentinel lymph node biopsy. Okay. Now there are approximately 10 to 20% such women who have negative axillary lymph node, yet they develop distant metastasis as well. Okay. So in such cases, the metastasis occurred via the internal mammary group of lymph nodes or hematogenicity. The second important thing is your distant metastasis, which becomes the most important factor. Once distant metastasis is there, cure is unlikely. Okay. Remember one thing. Then the third important thing is the tumor size. So the risk of metastasis, lymph node metastasis, is there with the size of the primary tumor. So whenever you are doing a breast tumor FNAC, so you are always advised, looking at the size of the tumor, when you see if it is a small mobile swelling, you usually do not go for axillary lymph node palpation. But if you see it's a big size tumor, always you go, and if it is a fixed tumor, you always go for axillary lymph node palpation. Because if the nodes are palpable, then the staging increases. Okay. Locally advanced disease, so carcinomas involving the skin or even the muscle, okay, they're usually large and they are going to increase the staging. The fifth important point over here is lymphovascular invasion, that we see LVI positive or no. So if you see the latest ASCO-CAP guideline, you are going to appreciate over there that there is a point for LVI is mentioned. Okay. So in the tumor, if you see LVI is present, it is a poor prognostic factor. And lastly, we have already discussed about inflammatory carcinoma, which is having a bad prognosis over here. Okay, which is having a bad prognosis. Okay. Now, response to the neoadjuvant chemotherapy. Let us see over here that this is also one of the important factors for prognosis. So treating patients prior to surgery provides the opportunity to observe the tumor response to chemotherapy. That is very, very important. So a third or more of triple negative and HER2 cancers can regress completely. Okay, before you give any treatment or surgery, approximately 1/3 of triple negative breast cancers and HER2 cancers, they regress completely, called as pathological complete response. Patients with responsive cancers belonging to these subtypes have a better prognosis than patients who are not responsive. So any kind of treatment before the tumor develops or before anything happens, means any kind of treatment, if it is working before surgery, will always improve the outcome. That is very important. So how the tumor is responding before the surgery is very, very important. Okay. Okay. Now, in contrast, very, very few luminal carcinomas, they respond prior to any kind of surgery to chemotherapy. I have discussed why they do not in the previous lectures. Okay. Typically, remember, however, the luminal carcinomas, they are slow growing and they can often be controlled with endocrine-based treatment, that is anti-estrogen therapy. So the entire prognostic factor can be, summarized into this particular way, that is the distant metastasis, regional lymph node status, tumor status, histological grading. Yes, what was the name of the grading? Yes, can anyone tell me what is the name of the histological grade used in breast carcinoma? Nottingham grading. Okay. Expression of ERPR HER2, why it is important? The IHC status. Yes, I have explained. Other prognostic LVI we have discussed. Special histological types I have discussed. What is the importance? For example, tubular variety, cribriform variety, lobular variety, they have a good prognosis. Yes. Response to chemotherapy, as I told you just now, we discussed, and gene expression profiling, yesterday only we discussed. Do you remember? Can you name the initial two gene expression or molecular profiling of breast carcinoma? What are the two important signatures we used initially? Yes, 21 gene assay, and one was based on your 70 gene assay. What was the name? Mama print, and there were two. This was your mama print, and there was your 21 gene assay also, and there is your 50 gene assay called as PAM50. Okay, just remember these points very importantly. Coming to our second last thing of our today's lecture is the staging of breast carcinoma. It is very simple. Now, staging of breast carcinoma, there is a T staging, N staging, and there is a distant metastasis. Now, it is very, very important for you, at least for the breast, you remember this. Okay. So there is a TX, the tumor cannot be assessed, no evidence of tumor. IS means in situ, Paget's, encapsulated papillary, solid papillary carcinomas. TIS, DCIS is the Paget's. Now, very important thing over here is that you have to understand is MI. MI stands for micrometastasis, when the tumor size is less than 1 millimeter. Now, if it is more than 1, less than 5, T1A, more than 5, less than 10 is 1B, more than 10, less than 20 is 1C. T2 is more than 2 centimeter, less than 5 is T2, more than 5 is T3. T4A, very, very important. Extension into the chest wall, okay, not including pectoralis, it is T4A, just the chest wall. If it is causing pudy orange appearance, ulceration of the skin, or satellite skin nodules, it is T4B. A and B together is called as C, and if inflammatory carcinoma is there, I said C, I think I said wrong, it was T4D. Okay, that is inflammatory carcinoma, it is a clinical diagnosis. Now remember, this is your pathological staging, PT. There is also clinical staging, and the clinical staging, this part is completely similar to the pathological staging of the tumor, the T staging we say. We have the nodal staging. Now remember nodal staging very importantly. Remember these two, don't remember this, then start from here. This is important. MI means micrometastasis, where the tumor deposit is more than 0.2 mm but less than 2 millimeter. And if it is less than 2 millimeter, it should contain more than 200 tumor cells. N1A is 1 to 3 axillary lymph node, okay, with at least a tumor deposit more than 2 millimeter. 1B is an internal mammary lymph node, and 1C is NA and B. But remember, this internal mammary node should not be palpable clinically. It should not be found clinically. Clinically, it should be negative. Just pathologically, if you can appreciate, then it comes under stage 1. In stage 2, again, is A and B. When metastasis occurs in 4 to 9 axillary lymph node, is 2A. And if metastasis occurs in clinically detected internal mammary, means clinically you can see enlargement of internal, and that you are confirming in microscopy, then it becomes 2B. 3A is more than equal to 10 axillary lymph node deposit. 3B means positive internal mammary by imaging. And 3C is metastasis in ipsilateral supraclavicular lymph node. Okay, this is your regional node staging. And lastly, you have distant metastasis. If it is present in some other organ, then it becomes a sad story again. And the staging, if you can see, is stage 1, 2, 3, 4. You might not remember these things, but this is the staging that is there in the 8th edition of AJCC. Okay. So with this, we have completed the invasive breast carcinoma in details, and we have discussed in details about how to grade a breast carcinoma, how to interpret the immunohistochemistry, what are the special types, subtypes, okay? And we have also discussed the prognostic factors and the staging of breast carcinoma in details. So any doubt anyone is having? Yes? Okay.
No, sir.
So thank you very much. Please go through this lecture, very important lecture. Thank you very much for attending today's lecture.